Hello, hello, hello. I hope you're hearing me okay. I am trying out a new sound gadget, which is just out of your view. So hopefully it's better. So welcome. This is a council meeting for herbalists, for all of you herbalists in here. And these are going to happen every month. And there's going to be about a half an hour, maybe an hour if, we need more time. But we're going to grab topics that are sort of hot, sort of needing to be addressed, sometimes coming up through your questions, sometimes coming up through my dreams, or maybe the health condition of a loved one, whatever. So it's really just some question answer time. It's some live time with me where we can get together. So I know it's a little challenging for everyone to get live. However, if you have a topic that you really want covered, or a question or something that you would love to have covered, you can email me. You can send me a message because we have each other's emails, and you can send me the topic, and we can go really, deep into something that maybe you're not seeing in the course. It's a pretty big course, but there's still areas that need to be explored a little more deeply. So if you have something, send it along. I'll put some information together that I can find, or from my experience as a nurse or as an herbalist, and then we'll do a council. So I went through my apothecary really officially. Now I am running two groups, so I started this talk with the other group earlier in the week, and they're actually going to turn out to be really different because I didn't go through my apothecary with them and realize that I have quite a few 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different Comfrey, plus a syrup in my fridge. So I think that I have a lot more Comfrey in my apothecary than I actually thought I did. And I always do. So I want to really dispel all the mysteriousness and the fear and anything around working with Comfrey that you see on the internet today. It didn't exist. That kind of basic misinformation did not exist when I began studying, and I just refused to accept it when it started to rear its head, and we'll talk about why. But before we begin, we'll just do a quick smudge in, clear the day a little bit. I hope you have a cup of tea with you. I'll try to stick to a half hour. I might actually jump off for a split second. Let's just smudge quick. Just a little leaf of sage. All this electronic stuff that we've got that virtually head to you. And may my heart inspire my words. May I speak clearly. So I'm going to just take the second, and I'm going to pop off for a moment and just lengthen our time, because when I get talking about Comfrey, I do go over. And I only booked a half an hour for us. So 1 second. Okay. I'm back. Yeah, that way I don't feel rushed. I don't want to feel too rushed, but I don't want to take up your whole night either. So I hope you have a yummy cup of tea. I am drinking red raspberry leaf. I am in deep recovery from many, many hours at the hospital. Literally 4 days round the clock somehow worked out into my life. So I spent a lot of time in bed today. Actually, I got up, got my son to school, went back to bed, slept another 3 hours. So I'm feeling really good now, actually. And I'm so excited to talk about comfort. So where to begin? I have some notes to try and keep myself kind of on track here. So we'll talk about, first of all, this is a Comfrey root tincture that I just made 2 days ago. And if you look at the way it moves in the bottle, I don't know if you can tell, but it's already very thick. It's got like a viscousness to it compared to other tinctures, because the root is super, super slippery, slimy. The roots grow in like a taproot style, like dandelion root, but they're longer. They're probably 3 times longer. They can go 2 and 3 feet down. And they'll stay like as big as my finger, maybe, and sometimes even a little bit bigger, depending on how old your plant is. And so when you're digging them, um, you'll lift the way comfrey root grows is or comfrey grows is it grows in clumps. They don't run around like a lot of plants do. They don't do that. The clump just gets larger and larger, and every few years, if you want to dig up comfrey root, even every year you can, or every other year you can. You just lift up the plant, split the crowns up, plant them in new places, and you'll get your roots from that. You can just trim them off and leave about this much of root with the crown and replant it. Look down in the hole where you dug it up first. If you're going to replant it there, if you're actually moving it away from that spot, you better dig down pretty deep because there's surely going to be roots down there, and any little tiny piece of comfrey root is going to come back a whole plant. So once you have it, you're never ever really going to get rid of it. It's really difficult to get rid of. The place where people run into a lot of difficulty with comfrey in the garden is if they rototill. Rototilling is, first of all, not even necessary in gardening. It's a huge piece of equipment that costs a lot of money, number one. Number two, completely not necessary. But some people still use them, and they chop up the comfrey root into 5,000 little pieces that become plants and then spread them down the row as well. And you will have comfrey forever. And it will become very invasive. And some people have started to get very aggravated with comfrey because of that. So if you stop rototilling, you will never have that problem. I've never rototilled my gardens. I've never rototilled a comfrey plant. Wherever I put comfrey stays. She just gets a little bigger. If I plant one little plant like this, and she takes up that much space. In about 3 years, she's going to take up this much space. And then I usually will lift and split up every 3 years. If I need a harvest and I have students, which I do this year, then they get some roots and so on and so forth. So, it's really important that you remember that when it comes to comfrey. Okay. It's not an invasive plant unless you rototill it. Then it is. The Latin name is Symphytum officinale, and that is the common comfrey, medicinal comfrey. But there's also a Russian variety, and the Latin name of that is Symphytum uplandicum, Upland, upland, ICUM, uplandicum. The Russian variety is very toxic. So there is some discrepancies in this research out there as to whether that variety was used in the only 4 cases. But, anybody getting hurt with a plant or any medicine is not good. But 4 people had negative experiences with comfrey, and it's possible that they could have been using the Russian comfrey, which is the Uplandicum species as well. It hasn't been made very clear as well in the trashing of the comfrey name. So you want to make sure you get the officinale, which is the common comfrey. You want to make sure that you're going to get reactions no matter where you go for this. If you go to the garden center with someone who really knows the plants, they're probably going to say something derogatory about this plant. If you go to the health food store and buy this plant, you're guaranteed, almost guaranteed, you're going to get some kind of a warning or be careful or hope you're not taking that internally. That tends to be the case. And it's because of these 4 cases that have been publicized around the globe where the people misdiagnosed, they self-diagnosed, and which is never good. You should never be diagnosing yourself of anything. As a person who's not feeling well, you need to sometimes, more times than not, step outside of your world and have somebody help guide you with your situation and your health. It's difficult to think clearly. I mean, this even happens with myself. When I have the flu and I'm really, really sick with a fever for 6 days, and that happened to me a couple years ago, I couldn't think straight. I felt like a caged animal in a corner, and I was fighting everybody. And it turned out I needed like 2 liters of fluid. I was so dehydrated, and I'm really conscious of how much hydration you need, and still couldn't keep up with it. And it was um, my husband's saying, I think we better go see the doctor, you know. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on, you know. So sometimes you need to remember this and remind the people that you love as well that they need to step outside of themselves, because these are the things that can happen, you know. So there's 4 people that self-diagnosed and self-treated and only used comfrey root and leaf, some of them in really high doses, and saw liver complications after 3 to 4 months of using comfrey in high doses every single day. So only one of them died. They had pre-existing condition with their liver as well. But the compound in comfrey, the big culprit that they think is, and they seem to be thinking that it is, this alkaloid called pyrrolizidine. So pyrrolizidine is found in other plants as well. It's in coltsfoot and various plants. Um, and it's in plants that you should not be taking every day. Okay. You can take them every day for a short period of time for an acute situation, but you shouldn't be taking them every day for like a tonic, because it's not a tonic kind of plant. It's got strong alkaloids in it that have alkaloids are strong action part of the medicine. The plant also has a lot of buffering parts to the medicine too. So when I talked about this looking syrupy and kind of like thick, a little bit thicker, um, the mucilaginous properties are part of the nutritive properties, and they're very soothing to the mucus linings, and they bring a lot of vitamins and minerals and soothing compounds into the body as well. And they can kind of buffer and soften the edges of the really strong alkaloids. So you want to think about no self-diagnosing, no self-treating. That's really important and all of these people had serious situations going on. You know, you're going to go for a plant like this, has a long history of healing some really serious things, you know, healing rectal bleeding, intestinal bleeding, blood coming from the lungs. You know, today you see these kind of things. We're running to a hospital for tests and all kinds of tests to find out what's going on. Back in the day, they just drank comfrey root for a while until it went away, and that was it. But in modern times, I don't know there's a lot of mystery around all the other circumstances with these people and why they did what they did. But what this compound can do is it causes a syndrome, which they've come up with a new name for it. Because of these 4 people, we have an entire syndrome name that has made this plant become banned in 2 countries that I know of, in the Netherlands and several countries in South Africa. And so they have banned it. You can't even grow it in your garden in some places. You can still get it here and grow it in your garden here, but there's all kinds of warnings about it. So there's a syndrome, and it's called hepatic occlusive venous syndrome, or HO, hepatic occlusive, HOVS. Very rare, but you can count on it if you're going to use comfrey in high doses over a long period of time. And what it causes is occlusive venous syndrome, occlusion of your veins in the liver. So that's not good. You're going to look really bad. You're going to feel really bad. You're going to get very jaundiced. You're going to start to accumulate fluid in the abdomen and the lower legs, ascites, and you're going to really need some assistance. And so when these 4 cases cropped up, and really it was with a resurgence of herbal medicine coming back in, I read a few articles that really they pretty much they pretty much accuse the pharmaceutical industry of wanting to taint herbal medicine in order to deter people from it. A couple articles that I read. Maybe that might be true. I can't say definitively if that is true, but if they feel that threatened, good. That's okay. I'm not saying we all need to learn how to sit at the same table and work together. We have a whole lot we can do when we have herbal medicine and some of the modern medicine things as well. We have a lot of healing that we can do too. So I'm not against one for the other. I just think there's certain situations where one does better than the other. That's kind of where I stand with it. And I do think that we need to exhaust the plants before we go there. That's how I feel. And the herbal world absolutely has nourishment, supporting health, and all kinds of things that you can do for those nourishing and supporting health, which modern medicine has nothing for that. They don't even really support diet very well, which is your main nourisher. So so then the science community decided that they really need to go in and do research. We have to research these plants because the people were rising up. We, the people, were rising up and wanting herbal medicine. More and more people were going to herbal medicine. Now it's a multi-million billion dollar industry, right? Which is good, and it's also not so good because now we need to figure out how to have a sustainable medical model. There are certain plants that we're losing because of this. So we need to stick to the really common ones that are easy to grow, that are really, and Comfrey is one of them, super easy to grow. I hear my son outside. Super strong medicine and used appropriately in the right situations for the right length of time, which is about, I say 2 to 3 weeks, and then you should stop. Um, and it doesn't matter if your liver is already compromised or if your liver is healthy. This can happen to your liver. It's got nothing to do with your pre-existing baseline. So you can hurt a good liver, if you take it for 3, 4 months, 5 months, every single day in high doses. So what the science community decided to do was to respond with its research. So I've not always been so very excited about the way science is always practicing the research, the research track. Okay, there are some things that are great, absolutely, but this evidence-based practice is a little out of hand for me as well. First of all, do we need to talk about animal testing and how we feel about that? In here, I think we probably all have similar, um, similar probably views about that. But we have to figure out some way to test some things. So we'll just kind of leave that topic alone for now. But what the science community did around pyrrolizidine was they took the pyrrolizidine, isolated it out of the comfrey, concentrated it, and then they took rats and pigs. Pigs are a lot more like humans, so they like to work on pigs a lot. And they fed them comfrey root and leaf every day and nothing else. And they injected pyrrolizidine alkaloid, completely only that, into the stomach subcutaneously, like through the exterior of their body into the stomach lining of their stomach. And then they would get this liver disease and die. And so this was a terrible thing, and you need to, and so the plant got trashed. I mean, the reputation got completely destroyed. It went way overboard. Who only eats comfrey root and comfrey leaf for months on end, number one. Number two, who has access to pyrrolizidine so that you can inject it into your gut? you know. And these 4 people, they kind of did the same thing, and it was unfortunate in that they took so much of it. They didn't only eat comfrey root and comfrey leaf, but they did show signs of the syndrome developing in them. So that's very unfortunate. And I don't ever want to see anybody get hurt from a plant, but these things work. So that's why we need to know how to use them. So comfrey has always been taught to me, particularly the root, which is the strongest part, always been taught. I was always taught a few weeks. That's it. You should, whatever your dilemma is, it should resolve itself in that time, or you need to move on to some other action, some other plant, some other therapy, whatever it is, or, go deeper into modern medicine, whatever it is. So long and short of it, and when you look, here's the other thing, and I don't want to downplay anybody's, getting hurt by a plant, but 4 people versus how many people a year have drug interactions? Hundreds of thousands of drug interactions happen every year. How many people die from medications every year? A lot. And so we have 4 people that were hurt, 1 person that died and didn't die from comfrey, did not die from comfrey, but died from complications that were exacerbated by taking so much comfrey. But they were in a terrible situation anyway. So we're talking about 4 people versus what happens today with modern medications, and yet the science and pharmaceutical industry completely, that herbal medicine is bad. It wasn't just Comfrey's bad, but herbal medicine is dangerous. You can't do this. You need to go through your doctor. It's not regulated, blah, blah, blah. So that's how it got its reputation. It's scarlet letter that it wears, the big C on its shoulder, you know. And I'm noticing that a lot of newer herbalists are, they won't work with it. They pass on all warnings, and they don't even go to working with a plant like this. But again, it's easy to grow. It's abundant. It's deep acting in the body. It's also nutritious and really, leaves can be worked into tonic formulas. I tend to I tend to not take comfrey by itself. I tend to always have it in a formula. It's with other plants. And as I said, when I work with the root is done for 2 or 3 weeks. Half the time I don't even need it for 2 or 3 weeks. The root has the most of this alkaloid in it, and it has all the lovely slippery mucilage, the strongest amount, the highest quantity of mucilaginous properties to it as well. So the root is considered stronger. The new leaves have a good amount next, and then the larger leaves, it really dissipates to a very small amount of this alkaloid. So if you pick mixed new leaves and big older leaves, the larger leaves and the young leaves, you'll have a nice combination of the stronger leaves with the more nutritive leaves. Dry them all together and crunch them up, and there's your comfrey leaf for the year. You know, I tend to drink comfrey. I tend to not drink it in the summer. I tend to drink it when the colds and flus are around, and then I'm going for the comfrey. And if we have a really strong respiratory virus in the house, or somebody's working on something bacterial in the lungs, we're going to be working with this plant. This is my go-to when I'm thinking pneumonia or when I'm thinking bronchitis. That I pull out this jar right here, comfrey root. There it is. And I have a little warning on there, no more than 2 weeks, because my husband doesn't always remember. So I have to, it's good to mark the plants that have some contraindications or some warnings on them, so that if I'm away for a month and I say, oh, get the comfrey root out and do this or do that. And he also makes a lot of teas. And sometimes he just pours through the cabinet and takes this and takes that. But if he sees a little caution note, he won't take that one. He knows his plants very well, but he defers to me if he's not sure, and he will do that, not take that. But this is the plant that I come to, and I'll make a decoction right in the moment and maybe mix it with a little mint or a little, whatever else I have for lungs, mullein, or I love peppermint always, and I like eucalyptus for the lungs as well, maybe a little ginger. But I'll make a nice strong decoction, drink a quarter of a cup straight away, wait 2 hours, drink another quarter of a cup, wait 4 hours, drink another quarter of a cup. And again, hydration, 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 percussion on the back and the front of the body, rest, 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 stay out of the cold, like all the things that you need to do to take care of the lungs, really simple foods like soup only, stay in bed, stay in your pajamas, up the vitamin C, all of those good things. That's my trick in my bag, and it always works. We've not had to go for antibiotics for the lungs, and I don't know when. And sometimes if it's really bad, if I feel like my husband one time was diagnosed with pneumonia but did not need to stay in the hospital for it. So he came home and we worked with comfrey root and we worked with grapefruit seed extract, which is a really good broad spectrum antibiotic. Again, all the other things that I just said to take care of the lungs. There's so much you can do, and really deep breathing. In the hospital, they have these machines called incentive spirometers. If you've ever had surgery, you've probably met one of these little breathing machines. It's got like 3 cylinders with little balls in it, and then you take really deep, you exhale all the way out. You take a really deep breath in, and you raise these 3 balls in these little cylinders. And if you can raise all 3 of them, that's good. Some people, when they get out of surgery, they can't raise them at all because they're, really coming from anesthesia. Anesthesia and surgical journeys are classic for pneumonia because a lot of patients they're in a lot of pain. They take a lot of pain meds, and pain meds reduce our respiratory rate reduce our desire to get moving, and that sets the stage for pneumonia very fast in the post-surgical patient. So deep breathing is really important. Getting surgical patients moving, getting them out of bed, even though it hurts. You have to get out of bed and get moving because the pneumonia will kill you more than the pain from your surgery. So, and Comfrey root goes deep. That's what I like about it. So, one of its old names is bone knit. It mends bones, tendons, soft tissue, all soft tissue, muscles, tendons, bones, the fascia, all of that, skin, subcutaneous tissues and all of that, and bone. It goes that deep. That's why I love Comfrey, because it goes so deep. And you think about that taproot going way down into the earth, pulling up all those deep minerals that are depleted from the surface soils and spreading them out in the leaves that now decay onto the top of the soil. And that's how the cycle continues. So Comfrey is a fantastic one in the garden for bringing up the deep minerals and remineralizing your surface soils. So I love to cut the Comfrey leaves down and chop them up with this cool Japanese blade, gardening blade that I have, and then just sprinkle them around the garden. It's like a green, sort of like in the moment compost that decays, and then the worms decay it. And it works right back into the soil. So I'm working into compost teas and things like that. So the garden loves Comfrey as well. So it's a really important one to have in your garden as far as replenishing the soil. It's very, very good. And it replenishes the minerals in our body. So it can do that with leaf. So here's a little bit of leaf in this jar here. Typical, nice, can't hardly see there, but nice green leaves in there. And like I said, I mix the small leaves with the really big leaves, and I dry them and just, you'll see, like that. So let's see. We talked about concentration. We talked about the 2 Latin names. We talked about what part of the plants. Pyrrolizidine you've learned about. Hepatic venous occlusive venous syndrome, or veno-occlusive syndrome. Rats and pigs being poorly treated. Let's talk a little more about the medicine of Comfrey as well. So I said it goes deep into the body. It works for knitting bone, for broken bones, for soft connective tissue. So anytime you have surgery, Comfrey's a really nice one to bring in for a week or two post-surgically, because I like to enter it. So that's really good for that. Anytime you've had cold or flu come through the house, whether it's a GI one, which is nasty and can leave the GI tract really messed up, Comfrey serves all the mucus linings of the body, whether it be the sinuses, whether it be the throat, and down into your stomach or down into your lungs, and all the way through the stomach, all the way out through the intestines, all the way. All mucus linings. Comfrey serves all of those parts of the body, absolutely, as well. So I think that sometimes I actually encourage people to work with Comfrey instead of arnica homeopathically. So there's a homeopathic item, which is Comfrey, and you can use that instead of, whenever you would use arnica, use that. I find Comfrey goes deeper in arnica, and because it grows near me, I resonate more with the Comfrey than the arnica, which grows in really high altitudes out west, and it's hard to grow, and it's really expensive, and it's beautiful and wonderful for the people that it grows near, but I like to work with the plants that grow near me. That's number one good medicine, always, and always how I was taught, was work with the local landscape first. Get really, really, really comfortable with those plants, and you'll pretty much have everything that you need. Yeah. So, a couple other things. So I showed you Comfrey tincture, all right? And I sometimes will work this into a cough syrup. I make small batches of cough syrup and I use it up. And then I make more. It only takes a couple of hours to make cough syrup, or 2 hours at the most. Then I have the Comfrey root for in the moment. You simmer it in 20 minutes and you've got some to drink immediately. I prefer to make a decoction, but I do have the tincture, which is more convenient for travel. Not that I travel that much, but I like to have both around. I have the Comfrey leaf, which I work into formulas too, but sometimes I'll just drink Comfrey leaf tea, and I like it with mint. I like it with lemongrass. Definitely in the winter more than in the summer when we're a little more respiratory challenged. Always, if there's any trauma to the body, I will sometimes mix comfrey and yarrow together, comfrey and calendula together. All of those are great for any kind of trauma. Plantain will mix really well too. Um, and this is a comfrey leaf tincture as well, which is pretty much ready to strain. And I made them more with the idea of working them into syrups. I'm totally in love with syrups. I've been making them like crazy this year. Just made another one with white pine. You'll be getting an article about today, and came out so good. So here's comfrey root powder. This is from Mountain Rose Herbs, and this is comfrey root powder, certified organic. And I use this in, if you haven't gotten to the lesson yet, you will. And there's a lesson on making energy balls and pasteles and these infused honeys. Maybe you got to the honey one. So this is the throat soother honey. You can see that. And this is made with sage and marshmallow root, echinacea root, ginger root, rose, and comfrey root. So this is honey and powdered herbs, and that's it. You don't warm it, you don't do anything, you just mix them together. And so I made this for my live students, and you can see, and it kind of looks like dark almond butter. It's very thick. Some of you are part of my live group. I'll give you a taste of this next time. And so when I give this for sore throats. So again, it's sage, marshmallow root, echinacea root, ginger root, rose, and comfrey root. And so you see it's so thick, and it kind of breaks off into like, it's like a soft taffy, and you just eat it. And it just kind of, it's like a soft, you chew it, you suck on it, you let it just dissolve in your mouth and slowly drizzle down your tongue, or down your throat, sorry. It's delicious. Honey and powdered herbs with little hints of rose going up through your sinus and sage. That's in the honey section, that recipe. Super easy to make. I leave it by the wood stove for a couple of weeks after I make it. So it's just warming, not on the wood stove. You don't want honey to get that hot. Highly recommend that. But you can imagine if you have a fiery hot throat, letting that drizzle down your throat. Drink some hot lemon and honey water, and do that whenever your throat's really, really hurting. And yeah, it was really. So those are some of my other comfrey products that I like. I have worked comfrey infused oil. I make that every year as well. What a great healer. And I didn't bring my comfrey salve, which is my regular little pot of salve that I have. I wanted a plain, simple salve. Plain, simple salve. And so I made a comfrey salve. That was it. It was olive oil infused comfrey leaf with comfrey leaf, beeswax, and a few drops, just a tiny bit of lavender, and that was it. And we use that on all our cuts and scrapes, chapped lips, whatever, as you would an all-purpose salve. I just make a little tiny, like half-ounce, 1-ounce jar, and then we use that up, and then I'll be inspired to make some new one. But right now we're working on a comfrey one, which is downstairs. I forgot to bring that. And I didn't even bring my infused oil up. So you see my Apothecary has quite a bit of comfrey products in it. So again, the whole purpose of this is for you to be excited about comfrey and well educated about comfrey and how to work with comfrey. You can put comfrey on the body, fine. I will actually, my teacher Pam has a story. When I was studying with her years ago, her daughter was about 13 or 14, and she broke her arm and her collarbone, I think, arm and collarbone. Horseback riding. She fell off a horse and they healed her bone in 3 weeks. Even the doctor with the x-rays was shocked at, even at 13, which we know they can almost grow new limbs at that age because there's, really good immune systems by then, but not quite. But they can grow them very fast. But he had never seen even a child grow a knit bone back together that quickly. And it's because she was doing Comfrey poultice, and you puree the leaves in, either in a mortar and pestle, the old-fashioned way, or in a food processor or blender in the modern way. Make a paste, and you can put that right over like a collarbone you can't cast. So they could put it right over the collarbone with gauze, tape that on, change it once or twice a day. Really, once a day is fine. And do that every day. And she was drinking it internally as well, the infusion of the leaf, really intensely for 3 weeks, and then they stopped. And she healed those bones really fast. So it's also worked into sitz baths. And I had another student in my other class share a story about that in a birthing center in New York City where she worked, where they kept Susan Weed's books in the nurse's station, and Comfrey was part of the sitz bath, postpartum sitz bath, for helping to heal tears and hemorrhoids and bringing everything back. We have to open, and then we have to close the doors and bring everything back in. And Comfrey is absolutely part of that. So you can mix Comfrey with, rose and yarrow and plantain and calendula and lavender, make a fabulous sitz bath, and do that every day for a week. And you will be amazed at how quickly your bottom will heal really fast. So, and it's pretty darn pleasant too. Very, very pleasant. I sitz bath after all of my births, and it's quite lovely, really lovely. So, I'm not sure if I have much else to share here. I think that's everything. As I mentioned, respiratory, skin, connective tissue, and any kind of GI stuff. So, anytime you're having maybe a little more into that GI, any type of irritable bowel, wouldn't be taking it every day for that, but you could work Comfrey leaf into a formula. It would be very nutritive if you have problems with that. Chamomile is key in irritable bowel. Chamomile needs to be worked in every day. You can put chamomile and Comfrey together in formula sometimes for that. Definitely any kind of hemorrhoid situation, you can bring Comfrey in and be very soothing and helpful. Sitz baths of it as well. Taking the leaf internally. You could do intense root with the work with the root if you want to. Like if you're really intense, or let's say you went for hemorrhoid surgery, then I would say the root would be appropriate for a week or two after, having corrective hemorrhoid surgeries. But definitely sitz baths, definitely. And I always work with calendula in there too. I just love calendula for the soft, soothing, pain relieving properties that it has. So GI, respiratory, including sinus, throat, lungs, then the whole GI tract, and then bones and soft tissue. Like, where doesn't Comfrey work? When you think about it, it works the whole body. So do not be afraid of this plant, even though everybody wants you to be afraid of it. You are carrying wisdom of the plants, and there's a lot of responsibility with this, which means that you need to bring it into your apothecary and start experimenting with this plant with your own body and the people you love who trust you, and really get comfortable with the ones that have these tainted reputations, so that you can disseminate really good information as a wisdom carrier for the plants. That's what you're being called to do. Part of why you're in this class here is to raise your awareness about the plant so that you can do this beautiful work of carrying the wisdom and knowing how to turn the raw material into a safe product that you're going to bring into or onto the body. So that's what we're doing together here. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the classroom. There is, in the classroom, when you look up on the right, there's a discussion button. You can start a new discussion anytime. If a question comes up from any of these council meetings, or if you're looking for a council meeting on a particular topic, that would be a good place to put it, because I'm always checking for some feedback or questions in those areas. So click on the discussions and you can post a topic. You can say, hey, Jen, I really want to know more about this, or I got a question about Comfrey, blah, 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 and just put it in there. And we can use that area of the classroom. It's a really great area that we don't even utilize at this point, but we're still moving into the classroom here. It's still kind of a new space. So stretch out, get comfortable. You've got quite a bit of time in here. It's going to be a full 2 years in the classroom for everybody too. I've already decided that everybody needs at least 2 years with this material because it's a lot. So you can count on that, and stay tuned because I'm working on a botany lesson for you, and a couple of other things that I felt were not quite fully addressed. Okay. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope that this helps you get a few more products into your apothecary. Look at them all. You can get all of these into your apothecary and start working with this beautiful plant, and maybe even bring it into your garden, and know that you know how to walk with a powerful healer who makes some people scared, and that's okay. And you've got some good notes on it now, so take some good notes and put it in your notebook so that you've got it. You can even do more research and download some articles for yourself so that you are ready. You are ready, and between having that information, bringing the plants in, and actually taking them into your body so you have some direct experience with them, you've got all the wisdom. You carry the wisdom by doing it that way. I never turned my back on Comfrey when the whole science community was doing that. And I'm comfortable in the science world, but sometimes they really think what they think is a little too important. We have to know how to discern as individuals too. Okay. So thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for listening. Of course, I went over, and have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. I'll see you in the classroom.